Okay, here's one more exciting video for you. The human heart. So your assignment was to label parts of the heart, and it's important that you know some of the basic parts in any case. Well, before we do the labeling, just a quick run through that when you talk about the heart, we basically have two hearts, really. There's the left side and the right side, and it's separated by this septum, this piece that goes down the middle, just like you may have heard the idea or the term a deviated septum, where you have something wrong with that barrier between your nose, a similar idea. But in any case, there's a left side and a right side, and even though this says right, when you look straight on, that says, well, that's my left side. Well, all drawings are made such that when you look down at yourself, you're looking down at your stomach or your chest and go, oh, that's my right side, there's my left side. And so that's kind of how you have that orientation, so don't get confused with that. So yes, this is the left side of the paper or the screen, but it really is the right atrium. So there's right side, left side, and then there's a top and a bottom. The top is always the atrium, the bottom is always a ventricle. So atrium top, ventricle bottom. Another piece about this is when the blood leaves the heart via an artery, it always gets pumped out of the ventricle and up and out of an artery, and the same thing on this side, pumped out of an artery. Okay, and here's just another quick diagram. Same thing. There's a septum, there's the top atrium, bottom ventricle, and since this is on this side, that makes it the right atrium and right ventricle. Okay, now here's your little diagram. AB3, and I noticed I left some letters off, but I'm going to start in a sort of a logical manner. In fact, I want to follow the flow of blood here. So we're going to start with N and J. These are vessels coming back to the heart, so therefore they're veins, and these are specifically the vena cava. So N is a vena cava and J is vena cava, very large veins, emptying all the blood from the head and upper torso and also from your chest and trunk area and your legs. And that's why we call the top one superior vena cava and the bottom one inferior vena cava, so blood's coming in. Now when the blood comes in from the vena cava, it comes into the right atrium, always comes in the top. That's the right atrium, so this little section here. And then in between atriums and ventricles, there's always going to be this valve, and like in your veins, it's a one-way valve. So when things contract, as in your heart, the blood can only go one direction, which hopefully is out of your heart. You hear about people that have heart murmurs and leaky valves. That's the problem here. Here's the actual diagram of the thing, and it's sometimes called a tricuspid valve. You can see 1, 2, 3 flaps here, so that's why they call it that. And here's more of a cartoon picture where you can see 1, 2, 3 kind of flaps here. We're going to find something on the other side very similar, which is a bicuspid valve. But in any case, that is the valve. And atrioventricular valve, so it's very descriptive. Then the blood goes from the right ventricle through the valve, excuse me, right atrium through the valve into the right ventricle down here. So that's pretty straightforward. Okay, next thing, it gets pumped out again, and it gets pumped out very quickly. It gets pumped out of an artery, or out of the heart through an artery. And this blood is going to be very low in oxygen, because remember the vena cava brings in blood from all parts of the body that have been used up all the oxygen. And where do we get more oxygen? Up at the lungs. And so B is right here is called an artery, and more specifically it's a pulmonary artery. Whenever you hear the term CPR, P stands for pulmonary, and when you hear that, you kind of think about the conjunction between blood vessels and the lungs. That's what pulmonary kind of refers to. So this goes up to the lungs. You also notice that this was drawn in blue, the vena cava and this artery here, in that it's very low in oxygen, which makes sense. And this is the only really arteries in your body that have a really low oxygen content. Most of them have a high oxygen content. So it goes up to your lungs, picks up all the oxygen, and it comes back to the heart again. So it's a very short trip up and down to the lungs. And of course we have a right lung and a left lung. And when it comes back to the heart, it's coming back via vein. So it's very easy to remember this one because it's just the pulmonary vein, one coming from each lung rather, from the right and the left lungs respectively. And blood always enters into the top of the heart, which is again going to be a atrium. But now since we're on the left side, it's not Los Angeles, but it's LA for left atrium. Then it moves on down the ventricle. But of course it goes through a valve again, and this time it's called the left atrioventricular valve. And atrium ventricle, again, very descriptive, just like the right atrioventricular valve. This one is often called the mitral valve, or sometimes it's called the bicuspid valve. You can see the difference between the flaps there. But I'm happy with the fact that it's the left atrioventricular valve. Goes down to the left ventricle, and gets ready to be pumped out again. And where does it get pumped out of? It gets pumped out of an artery. And the biggest artery in your body is the aorta. You can see some branches here. This will go up to the head and different areas, and it kind of bends down and goes farther down, and then it comes back in via the vena cava. So we got the complete little circuit there going on there. So this is a little diagram that has a little more details. There's some things added to it, but most of the things you need to know are there. So you can look at this one at your leisure. Hope this is pretty exciting stuff. And so let's see if I can shut this puppy down.